Okay, we're going to get started here. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to our Flagler County Board of County Commissioners meeting for today, September the 16th, 2019. We're in the Government Services Building in the Board Chambers, and I'm going to call this meeting to order and ask that you join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And as we do at all our meetings, we ask that you join us in a moment of silence. And this evening, two things. One, of course, we always want to remember our first responders and our law enforcement personnel that serve us here in Flagler County and keep us safe, and the brave men and women of our United States military that serve us here and abroad. And I also, our first meeting after the September 11th anniversary date, I just want to take a second and ask that we also keep all of those victims and those heroes in our prayers and think about them. You know, Flagler County is kind of interesting because of all the marketing that ITT did in the Northeast, in Washington and New York and Philadelphia, and all in that area. We have literally thousands of residents that come from that area throughout Flagler County, and I would venture a guess that thousands of residents that we have here in Flagler County have very personal memories and ties to that terrible, tragic day in that area. So please join us in a moment of silence as we think about those folks. Okay, thank you. I don't believe we have any additions, deletions, or modifications to the, we do. I'm sorry? 7S. Hold on.
No.
Okay, we have a deletion. 7S has been pulled by staff, so that's the only change to our agenda. And we do not have any announcements by the chair, so I will again also remind everyone that we do have a number of vacancies on some of our boards and councils, and we have a vacancy currently on our Contractor Review Board and our Economic Opportunity Advisory Council. And if you're interested in those positions, please go to our website, which is flaglercounty.org, and there's a section for advisory board vacancies, or you can also contact Ms. Mari Davis at mdavis@flaglercounty.org. Mari's phone number is 313-4094. And the other, I guess, just quick announcement is that our second budget hearing will be this Thursday, September the 19th, right here in these chambers at 5:30 p.m. And our next regularly scheduled Board of County Commissioners meeting will be Monday, October the 7th, 2019 at 9 a.m. So that concludes our items 2 and 3 on the agenda. And we will move to, before we do that, I just want to also announce that we have a time-certain item for 5:30 for our presentation of our annual financial audit. So we'll see how things go with the agenda, but at 5:30 we will pause what we're doing and move to that item. So with that, we'll move to recognitions, proclamations, and presentations. We have no recognitions this evening, but we do have a proclamation for POW MIA Recognition Day, and I've asked Commissioner Sullivan if he would take care of that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess if there are people going to receive the proclamation, they could come forward now as I read it. Okay, a proclamation of the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners recognizing September 20th, 2019 as POW MIA Recognition Day in Flagler County. Whereas the United States of America has been founded on the principles of freedom, justice, and respect for life, and whereas millions of men and women have served in the armed forces of the United States in order to preserve those principles And whereas those veterans number over 12,000 in Flagler County, and whereas the American Legion supports achieving a full accounting of all POW MIAs from the Gulf War, Vietnam War, Cold War, Korean War, and World War II. And whereas those unaccounted for POW MIAs number 82,000. And whereas the National League of Families proposed the third Friday of September as a commemorative date. And whereas Flagler County Veterans Organization members continue to serve by sponsoring programs and supporting legislation to benefit veterans. And whereas the Veterans Service Organizations formed the Flagler County Veterans Advisory Council to provide a united effort in support of those veterans. And whereas Flagler County Veterans Advisory Council supports National POW MIA Recognition Day and encourages all to remember those who have not returned from past conflicts. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed by the Flagler County Board of County Commissioners that they hereby proclaim September 20th, 2019 as POW MIA Recognition Day in Flagler County, and encourage all residents to participate in remembering by suitable ceremonies. Adopted the 16th day of September 2019, attested Tom Bexley, Clerk of Circuit Court and Controller, and signed by Flagler County Board of County Commissioners, Donald O'Brien. So thank you again. You come forward. I'll present you with you wanted to say something? Go right ahead.
Gentlemen, any?
Thank you very much.
Oh, okay. Would you
please come
mind
back
coming
up.
up and take a photo
The whole
with
group.
us?
Oh, sure. And we'll take some photos.
Guys, congratulations.
Commissioner, you want to make a motion on that one?
I make a motion that we approve that proclamation for POW MIA Recognition Day, and I might add that a number of us up here on the podium are veterans and served during the Vietnam War.
I'll second it as a member of this American Legion post.
Thank you, gentlemen. All those in favor of approval of the proclamation, please signify by saying aye.
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 That motion carries unanimously. Okay, next up, we have a presentation, which is Flagler Health Care Connect, which is a community health organization and platform. And I see we have the CEO of Flagler Health here this evening, Mr. Jason Barrett, and I believe you're going to kick that off, Mr. Cameron?
Yes, sir. It's an honor for me to introduce Jason. I had an extensive relationship with him when I was with St. Johns County, building public-private partnerships, the result of which is that St. Johns County was able to save millions of dollars a year, literally millions, every year recurring. And we were so successful in developing those partnerships and bringing services to St. Johns County that I continued to work with Jason, building community outreach for Flagler Hospital for a number of months or maybe even over a year after I left the county. They have introduced a homeless management information system, or HMIS, that is probably the most robust in Florida. Jason was able to recruit some serious talent to that, and I had called Jason because we've been unable to establish such a system in Flagler County, and I asked him if there was any way that Flagler might be able to reach out to us and help us get that established. And he was very magnanimous and said that they would commit whatever resources were necessary to get that established in Flagler County. And he has since announced that he's going to put a healthcare village in Flagler County. And I asked him if he would be willing to come before this board and talk to them a little bit about both the HMIS system and the new healthcare village. So it gives me a great deal of pleasure to introduce Jason to you. Jason, if you could come up to the front mic.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here to present to this distinguished body. I want to thank the chair and the rest of the commission for this opportunity. Before I begin, I do want to introduce my colleague, the brains behind the operation, Brittany Coronado. I didn't realize that the presentation on community health would draw such a crowd, but I'm glad that they're here this evening. Again, thank you, Mr. Commissioner. And thank you, County Administrator, for the opportunity to have this discussion. I do want to make a couple comments as we talk about the presentation that we're making and the work that we've done in St. Johns County. The conversation we're having today is, does this have application in Flagler County? We think that it does. We believe that being a health system provider means that you provide care in the community that's beyond just physical treatment. We'll talk a little bit deeper about what that means, but we also recognize that we want care to stay in the community. We're not looking for outposts to drive care somewhere else. We want care to stay in the community. We believe health care is a very personal item, and it's best provided in the comforts of your neighbors and your colleagues. So please stop me should you have any questions. We want this to be interactive. I'm not going to do the sales slide for you, but I think folks are aware that Flagler Health Plus has been serving St. Johns County for 130 years. We're the oldest self-governing health system in the state of Florida. We are expanding our footprint. We've been serving Flagler County for a number of years, and I'll talk more deeply about that as well. A little bit about our focus. Our focus is more than just physical health. I think everybody understands what physical health is, beyond just diagnosis and treatment. We are taking a more expansive view on the concept of health, and that's social health, which is a lot of the focus that we're going to talk about tonight with our new organization, which is called Care Connect. But there is also economic health. We have a crisis of affordability in the United States. And the reason why we are numbered, right behind Guatemala as it relates to the World Health Organization is not a function of our competency. It's a function of affordable access. I always make that, when I deliver that statistic, it's a function of why is everybody flying here for the most advanced care, right? It's those that can't afford the care. And Flagler County is no different than St. Johns County. We see disparities in care based on socioeconomic indicators, ethnicity. So what do we do as a health system to better serve those that are most vulnerable? And we believe as we talk about social care, social health, that's things like housing, food adequacy, access to care, transportation, community behavioral health. So we're going to talk a little more deeply on that. For an organization our size to do $35 million a year in charity care, it's because we're committed to the community. We don't answer to shareholders. We have a community board. We answer to our community. And again, when we go back to economic health, it's incumbent upon us as a health system to drive down cost for those beneficiaries that are making decisions between basic human needs and care. So our commitment towards economic health, and this will be borne out in this health village that we're opening in Flagler County, will focus on providing more affordable care offerings. We're not building freestanding ERs. That's antithetical to reducing cost. And, who does that impact? That impacts our large employers, the county, the city, the school district. We've seen this in St. Johns County. We're the #1 school district in the state of Florida for 10 years running. Several years ago, they were $10 million underfunded in their health plan. I don't want to be in the position of I'm the problem. It's incumbent upon us to reduce that spend. So that even plays out in the type of provider offerings we're putting forward to the community. So much of the conversation is going to deal tonight on our separate, it's a separate subsidiary of the organization. It's a 501c3. Care Connect is the name of the organization. And what it does is it's really our social responsibility organization, our community health organization. And it focuses on those social determinants of health, which I outlined previously. We cannot look at health in an isolated fashion. 60%, and this comes from the New England Journal, 60% of care is in fact impacted by those things that are happening outside the care provision. Again, dealing with food adequacy, education, transportation. And if you're going to provide access and provide care to the community, it's the right thing to do. We should be doing this. So we have established a new organization, and it's, again, a separate 501c3. It has its own board, and the intent of this organization is to meet unmet social need. So as we talk, we are the lead agency for homelessness in St. Johns County. We're the only health system in the United States that's a lead agency for homelessness. We're also focused on community behavioral health. I'll talk more deeply about what the work we're doing there, but in St. Johns County, we were 55 out of 67 counties in teen suicide. We were 60 out of 67 in adult suicide. And why is that? Because there's not affordable access. And I will tell you that from the standpoint of care being provided, we know that national average it's 300 to 1, 300 patients to one provider in the behavioral health space. State of Florida, 700 to 1. St. Johns County is 920 to 1. Flagler County is 1,200 to 1. There's an issue in terms of access to care, but we can't divorce that from the affordability. This is part of the work that we're doing. And one of the things I would point out is when we talk about these social agencies, it's not that it's just that there's not access to care. We have this very inefficient ecosystem of providers. And part of the work that Ms. Coronado is doing in the homeless space is connecting all the various agencies who aren't talking. So if I would leave you with what Care Connect is, it's two things. It's a convener. It's an aggregator of all the various agencies where we have one access point for those that need care. And it's also, we also still wear a provider hat. And I can talk a little more deeply about that as well. So in 2019, for the various things that we focus on, and again, that deals with homelessness, community behavioral health, dealing with our elderly in the crisis of isolation, we served over 3,400 clients. There were almost 35,000 unique needs that were identified, 32,000 of those which were met. Ms. Coronado is going to talk about our universal intake application, but 719 of those were completed by Care Connect, so that we do have one entry point. And then we connect the various agencies. And today we have 36 separate agencies, depending on the cause, working together. So, Ms. Coronado?
So here we wanted to show you some of the impacts that we've had in our homeless community. So as you see, by creating this coordinated process, we're able to actually see with the homelessness, although there was a 4% increase in homelessness within St. Johns County, we were able to actually look at those that were most vulnerable and really impact what we consider as being vulnerability within homelessness. So unsheltered, you're looking at a decrease of 38% from 2018 to 2019. Veterans homelessness had decreased by 17%. Youth, 59%. Youth is considered 18 to 24 range. And then chronically homeless, there was a slight increase of 8%. So those are the types of categories that we're looking at in homelessness to be considered as most vulnerable. And by creating this system, of course, we're able to impact those a little better. And then as we look at leveraging technology, Service Point was primarily used for the homeless management information system, where we were able to collect client level data, really look at the housing situations and services that were to be provided with housing for those that were homeless or at risk of homelessness. But by creating the shared system and bringing on other providers, we're then able to look at it as a whole, and then you have a unified system to where we can look at ongoing system performance and the improvements in determining the optimal resource reallocation.
So, question, sorry.
Sure.
With shared data, we're talking the ability of all our different social service agencies throughout the county to be able to have access to this
Right.
system, to be able to input data so that we have one common database
Right.
across the whole.
Yes.
Yes.
So everybody can see all of the information that's in the system, and it also allows for the trying not to, serve the client again and then going down an avenue that's already been experienced, that they may have already sought another agency, and here we are trying to coordinate that care and come to find out they've actually already received those services, so it's probably not the best route to go. So we're able to really look at everything as a whole and know how to really work with that client.
And a lot of the research that I've done says that the more you understand the data and the inflow and outflow and the movement
Right.
of the clients, if you will,
Yes.
helps you manage the process that much
Yes.
better and yields much better results.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
And to further the point, and maybe to finer point on this, the biggest issue we have in healthcare, frankly, and this applies to social agencies, is the fragmentation, the coordination of all the providers, and the duplication of service. And when we have that duplication of service or the lack of coordination, harm happens. Frankly, that's one of the focuses for us, whether it's in social health or physical health, is preventing harm. As we talk about the next big initiative for Care Connect, it deals with community behavioral health. I gave you the statistics in terms of affordable care, or accessible care. We've just recently partnered with the St. Johns County School District for adolescents, and we have instituted a program that will be announced on September 30th, where we have partnered with the school district to better provide access to care. Last year, for those kids that were in crisis, only 38% of them received care. These are children in crisis. We had 200 Baker Acts last year, and these children are supported by this. We have a CAT team in St. Johns County. We have a FACT team in St. Johns County. But that being said, we're not having care provided in a coordinated way. And I will say, and I say this not to exploit, my son was one of those children. So this is very meaningful to me. We are going to do better. The expectation is that 90% of those kids, when identified with, an issue, are provided care. So what does that look like? That includes telepsych, where we're putting in all the schools. We did forums with the students. And what we have found is we have this stigma crisis. They said, everybody post-Parkland talked about the funding that came to the various districts, and we're going to put all these counselors in schools. The kids told us we're not going to go to them. Why are they going to do that? Why aren't they going to do that? It's because of the stigma. Everyone knows, right? So we've been introduced with a crisis text line in St. Johns County because the kids want anonymity. And peak hours of usage are 11 to 1. That's when they're at the lunch table. So on top of that, though, we have created these 9 geo zones in St. Johns County where we're providing care navigators in the schools to ensure that that 38% does become 90%, working to provide, again, telepsych offerings that can be handled at home. It would be multimodal. It could be included in the schools. My guess is the application of it will be less. But what we want to make sure is that these kids, when identified, are actually provided care, continuous care, not episodic care. So again, we believe that this could be a national model for care because it's organized. It's a private-public partnership. Because yes, we are working with the school district, and we have had industry come to the table. We raised over $2.5 million already to support this initiative. We can't announce who that is, but on September 30th we can. But I would tell you it's multimodal from the standpoint of a technology application. Certainly, we're going to integrate this into our primary care offerings, our pediatric offerings that we're providing, and we would do the same thing in Flagler County. But I think we would be derelict in our responsibility if we do not make sure our youth, our most vulnerable, do not get access to care. So as we talk about Flagler County, we've had a long-standing relationship here. Close to 1,200 residents choose to have care provided at Flagler every year. We've had, 30% of market share as it relates to OBGYN services are provided at St. Johns County. We think it should be in Flagler County so the community doesn't have to leave the community. Same thing with community behavioral health. I mentioned the 1,200 to 1 that you're looking in terms of provider access. We think we can be a part of supporting that need. So we have our first health village that will be provided in Flagler County. That will take place. That is on Belterre and Matanzas Parkway. It's a 4-acre parcel. It will provide community behavioral health services, primary care, women's and children's, and some specialty services. But we'll also incorporate community engagement space so that what I've always admired about the community, whether it's Palm Coast, Flagler County, Bunnell, is that people move here for a distinct reason. When we talk about ITT and the development, these folks that have migrated in here want a community, right? And we think that healthcare can help anchor some of that. A little bit about your community health needs assessment. I think we're very similar in terms of what those items are that need to be addressed. State of Florida is late to the table. I just met with Senator Galvano, and he said the same thing. We're late to the table in terms of funding community behavioral health. We have to do more. Well, I don't believe that's simply a bureaucrat's responsibility. I believe that's a provider's responsibility, and you're going to see us continue to make further investment. This also deals with the most unhealthy behaviors. Again, very like efforts. So again, this was meant to be brief. This was meant to tee up what we're doing in St. Johns County and whether or not there's an appetite to provide those services in Flagler County. I would point out this cannot happen by fiat. The problem when you deal with all these various agencies is self-interest rises to the forefront. We were very fortunate in St. Johns County that they were okay with us taking the lead as being the aggregator. And that it truly is a confederacy. It's not some sovereign nation. But we believe by working together, we can make a better, and by them, by the way, affording us to take the lead, we've found that we've had better coordination. So I'll stop there. What questions may you have, or do you have?
Commissioners?
Have you met with our various providers out there, like our homeless efforts and our battered wives shelters?
And again, part of this is an entree point.
Okay.
And so we haven't gotten to that point yet. And again, there is some distinction as it relates to homeless because you have Flagler Volusia, which is different than what's taking place in St. Johns County. But there's certainly an eagerness to do so.
Commissioner Mullins?
Jason, I want to thank you for coming in this evening. We've had a chance to communicate and talk, and I've gone up and seen the health villages. And, I've grown up with a very extensive medical background, my father being a doctor, my brother, my uncle, my family being involved with HCA. And I'm very impressed with what you guys are doing. I want to say I'm very impressed with the community involvement that I saw that you guys have. I'm not used to living in a community that doesn't have medical engaged with the community and walking through with the needs, and this has been a first. You mentioned a lot of people are working and getting service up there. I did see when I went through and toured the hospital, saw a lot of Flagler people. We got a lot of our talent that's going up there and working, and it's nice to know they're coming back here with having the opportunity to come back here and work in this community. The homeless has been something I've been very active, and we've had some conversations about it, me, you, and the county manager and some other staff. And, we've toured it, looked at the homeless. That HMIS system is phenomenal. It's what we need because there needs to be some organization. Just this weekend, I observed on the park benches of Palm Coast Parkway and I-95, homeless people sitting out there, and a lady just lost, throwing stuff all on the road, walking out in the road. And we certainly haven't, we've only opened up the can of worms there, but we do need to organize it and bring it together. And this system does that. And you guys have dealt with it up in St. John's, as you've shown me. I'm very impressed with it. Suicide and labor and delivery, I've been preaching it over and over. We need to do something. I just got notice today a 14-year-old girl in our school system overdosed and has been put in a hospital. That happened today. 14 years old is overdosing on drugs. I mean, we have a dire need for services like this in the community. The schools are ready to partner with an organization. I think it's time that we have a community health care that wants to share the vision of what the county needs, not try to tell the county what they need and repress it. And that's something I saw you guys doing up there that I was really impressed. So looking at the needs and the services, I would love to engage and talk more and continue our dialogue on talking more about having more medical and more services in this community. I think this is just the beginning of the touching of the iceberg of what we need in this community. We, especially 14 years old, we don't need to be losing our kids to drugs. We don't need to be losing them to suicide. We don't need to be losing anyone in this county. And being number one was not something that I wanted to walk into, and I'm glad we're up to 9, but I'd like to see us near dead last like you guys have. And I think that paying attention to those things and meeting the services is the key here. So I would love to continue that dialogue, and let's get focused here and start working and getting the services here we need. I think competition's great, and it's about time we have it here in our medical. But thank you.
Anything else, Commissioners? Okay, thank you. Thank you very much, Jason.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, I'm sorry.
if I may, I'm really excited about bringing this information system in, and as Mr. Barrett said, this is the beginning. The next thing we will do is set up meetings with the providers and with Brittany. She is really good at building these partnerships. The presentation you just saw, anybody that looks at it and knows anything about healthcare understands it's very ambitious. And I have worked with Jason on equally ambitious projects. And if there's any question about his ability to get these things done, he was just selected by Florida Trend as one of the 500 top executives in the state of Florida. He puts behind what he says the means to accomplish it, and I'm really excited about moving forward and taking the first serious step to addressing the homeless issue.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cameron. All right. We're going to move on. We have a time certain item. Under general business, it's item 8A. This is presentation of our audit report for the fiscal year ended September 30th, 2018. And I think we have some folks here from our audit firm, Carr, Riggs & Ingram, to present. Before we do that, I want to extend my thanks, and I'm hoping the thanks of our board here to our staff, the financial services team, for their hard work on this audit and in support of it, and as well as our partners at the clerk's office, Ms. Barker and her team, and the leadership of the clerk to get this thing done and put to bed, and earlier than last year, thankfully. Not early enough, but we're making progress, moving in the right direction. So we're thankful for that, and I know we had some hiccups and challenges along the way, but we worked through them, and I'm proud of the fact that we got it done, and we have some good teamwork here, and we'll learn from past mistakes and move forward. But welcome, sir.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me here today.
Please introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name is Kyle Gammon, and I am with Carr, Riggs & Ingram. I first want to say thank you and reiterate what you just said. As many of you know, there's a lot of information and time that goes into putting together one of these reports, and there was a lot of effort from county management and the clerk's office, and I just want to reiterate, I appreciate their efforts that they made, and we very much do enjoy working with each of them. I guess to summarize your audit of the September 30th, 2018 statements, you received an unmodified audit opinion on those, which is a clean opinion. That's the opinion that you want to receive, which just states that the financial statements are fairly presented in accordance with the accounting standards. There was an emphasis of matter paragraph in your auditor's report this year, and that was just a reference to the implementation of GASB 75, which was to bring your OPEB liability to the financial statements. Note 15 and Note 16 of the financial statements provides more information on that change. In addition to kind of the audit report that you received, there are additional reports that are required by both the Uniform Guidance and the state of Florida. And I'll kind of just summarize those reports real quick. Related to the financial statements, we did not note any non-compliance in regards to the financials. With regards to the single audit that we performed in accordance with the Uniform Guidance this year, we did issue an unmodified opinion or a clean opinion on that as well. And related to that, we tested one federal program this year, but we also tested 5 state projects and did not note any issues in any of those projects in terms of noncompliance. The Florida Auditor General also requires that we address you in a management letter, which is also included in your annual report. With regard to that, there were no matters to note or no noncompliance to note in that letter. We also performed 2 attestation engagements for you. That was in regards to whether the county invests funds in accordance with Florida statutes and also use funds in accordance with the E911 regulations in the Florida statutes, and we did not note any issues of noncompliance there as well. Just one more highlight that I just want to mention is your general fund and state revenue funds, special revenue funds were all expended in accordance with approved budgets. So that was good to note as well. That really is a high-level summary of your annual financial report this year. I'd be happy to answer any additional questions that you may have.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I seem to remember something. Was this report delayed longer than it should have been, or was that the previous year's audit?
Well, last year's was far more delayed, but maybe you can outline for the commission what the standards are, the requirements.
Sure. The extended deadline is June 30th for your annual financial report with the state of Florida.
Last year we did this in
I
November?
think November, yes.
Yeah.
Doing this in September.
Mhm.
Oh, okay.
Yes, I can address that, or maybe Mr. Cameron, would you like to address this question related to this year?
With respect to that, I can just tell you that it will be on time for this current year. You will receive it. We're starting now, and we'll have it submitted in time for them to get the audit back to you and meet the deadline.
I attended the exit interview
Sure.
this past week, and one of the questions I had in your opinion, would this have any negative impact on our bond rating? And if you might want to just clarify that, if you wouldn't mind.
Sure. I do not believe this would affect your bond rating at this time. And just to, I guess, clarify on the delay, I think Hurricanes Matthew and Irma really impacted a lot of things throughout the county, but that also included a lot of the accounting and tracking of those grants money that was coming in. And I guess there were some delays in gathering and collecting that information accurately and timely, and that was a large part of the delays, really both in the previous year and this year as well.
Mr. Chairman, with regard to the bond rating, we're working with lenders. They are pleased with the fact that we are working in accomplishing increases in reserves, and we're not resorting to millage rate increases in order to fund operations.
From my perspective, one of our lenders basically told me the same thing, that I don't have to say who it is. We know who that is, but yeah, that's what I've heard. So, anything else, commissioners? Okay.
Thank you very
All right,
much.
thank you. Mr. Clerk, did you care to, anything on this presentation at all? Sorry, just giving you the opportunity. All right, thank you, sir. Okay, we're going to move on to the community outreach portion of our agenda. And as a reminder, this is a 30-minute time period that's been allocated for public comment on any consent agenda item or topic not on the agenda. Each speaker will be allowed up to 3 minutes to address the commission, and speakers should approach the podium, identify themselves, and direct comments to the chair. So I will now open up community outreach. Anyone would wish to come forward, please do so.
Good evening, Commissioners. My name is Daryl Hickman. I'm the chairman of the Flagler Executive Airport Advisory Board, and this is Les Abend, the vice chair. Just wanted to publicly thank you for the receipt of the letter that we sent you in regards to radar services at the airport. As was stated in that letter, we need your help to get the Federal Aviation Administration to release that equipment to us. We are the 4th busiest federal contract tower in the country. Yet of the top 25, we're the only ones without radar services, and a smaller airport like Ormond Beach has that service. So we're seeking your assistance in that matter. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next speaker, please. Welcome, Ms. Ellis.
Hi there, Joy Ellis. I live in the Hammock, and I am here tonight to let you know that many of your visitors in the audience wearing shades of green are representatives of the Hammock or the Hammock Community Association. I found out just tonight from Mr. Hadid that the Hammock Community Association is the oldest civic organization in continuous operation in Flagler County. Is that right, Mr. Hadid? Beginning in the 1960s. So you'll find that your brochure is wrong in that regard. I wanted to let you know that we are supporters of the Hammock, safeguarding the unique character of the Hammock, not only for residents of the Hammock itself, but also for residents of Flagler County that use the Hammock as a recreational and relaxation facility. We know about all of our natural resources that are available. And we wanted to let you know we're here to give you our opinions respectfully. And we want you to also know that we study very hard to try to be knowledgeable in regard to the factors that we present. And we have a desire to work cooperatively with the county in making recommendations and giving information moving forward. So thank you for being here. Thank you for providing the service you do and for being willing to be a cooperative partner with our community.
Thank you, Ms. Ellis. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Don White. I'm a resident of unincorporated Flagler County. It's a little bit unusual for me to be up here tonight. In essence, I have 2 complaints. One is with Waste Pro, and the other one is actually with Flagler County. And before you draw any conclusions about Waste Pro, let me state that in the past, I've actually been one of their biggest cheerleaders, even writing letters to the Observer, giving them a break, but acknowledging that, yeah, they've had some problems. But you know what? I go back to their predecessor, which was Waste Management, and I know how bad things got under Waste Management, and it was significantly worse. So that said, the reason I'm here tonight is because my green waste pickup is scheduled for Wednesdays. Last week, for whatever reason, I had my green waste out on the curb, and virtually, literally everybody on the entire street, including my neighbor directly across from me, everybody was picked up at me. I came home around 4 o'clock. I found the stuff out there, and I immediately called them and said, they missed me for whatever reason. The lady said, no problem, we'll pass it along to a supervisor. I said, don't pass it along, just send somebody out here. They can put whatever little bit is out there in the back of a small pickup truck. Okay, we'll let them know. Nothing happened. I called them again on Thursday, and we told the supervisors we're not sure what's going on. Nothing happened. Called them again Friday, and I said, look, we've got this Humberto coming. If the winds start blowing stuff around and in the street, I'm going to be pretty ticked off. We'll let them know. Saturday morning, nothing happened, and I called again, and of course this time it went to voicemail. And I left a message and said, okay, this is it. I've got to elevate this, and that's what I'm doing right now. As of this afternoon, still hadn't been picked up. Now, let me move on before I run out of time. The second part of my complaint, quite frankly, is squarely with Flagler County. Flagler County has abrogated its responsibility under state statute for solid waste. And you've done that by saying and telling people through general services, if you've got a problem, contact Waste Pro. That's not right. That's like telling the fox to watch the hen house. And I think that Flagler County owes it to the residents and the people that pay their bills and whatnot through the assessment on our taxes to have a single point of contact within general services that when we've got a problem, we can call them. I should only have to call Waste Pro one time. After that, I need to be able to come to Flagler County and have Flagler County fix my issue and watch the hen house. And it used to be that way, by the way. Okay.
Thank
If you
you.
have any questions, then, no?
Thank you, Mr. White.
Okay. I assume that I'll hear from somebody.
Can you give your contact information here to?
Mr. Cameron?
Yes,
Sure.
please. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Hadid knows how to reach me.
Okay.
We've been old friends. No, I'll let him know.
Thank you. Okay, all right. Welcome, sir.
Good evening. George Mayo, Palm Coast. This week in the paper, the House passed H.R. 1941, which states a bill that would bar the federal government from awarding leases for oil and gas development through at least 2024 in the outer continental shelf off the Atlantic and Pacific coast. I had asked for this for a couple of years. Our commissioners have been supportive of this. I ask that the commissioners and/or our administration contact our state senator, our national senators, and ask them if the bill comes up in the Senate to please pass it, and hopefully it will go on for further signing. We must protect our coast. We just spent millions on our dunes restoration. If they were to drill one spill, one pipe leak, would be all for nothing. It would devastate the economy. The other thing is today's news. There is a national suicide prevention hotline that you can call, 1-800 number, and I even forget what it is. There's a proposed federal agreement that they're looking for to change that to make it 988, as we have a 911, we have a 411 for information, et cetera. So maybe we might look into it and talk to our representatives, our senators, and see what needs to push that through. I think if somebody were in dire need, they may not remember, a 10-digit number, 800, whatever it might be. 988 would surely help that a lot and maybe help prevent, a suicide, as we just spoke about mental health tonight with Flagler Health. So maybe we can look into that and show our support for that and get it going. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayo. Next speaker, please.
Jane Gentile, Ute Plantation Bay. I must commend speakers 1 and 2. I'd like to sign my name to both Don White's request. Waste Pro, over this weekend, actually, I should have taken a picture. I had to actually tape yellow notices, do not flip my can. We bought garbage pails that have lids and wheels. I'm 75 years old. They tip them upside down. They leave them in the street. You can call. Something needs to be done with these people. They're outrageous. They left yard trash for over a week, and we have snakes and everything else. So, but I'm here for another reason too. I remember the good old days when I would ask for the weekly agendas. I have never seen such a disgraceful website. I get this notice, and you have to click and then you click to Flagler County, and then you have to click again to the Board of County Commissioners, you have to click to government, then you have to click to agendas 2019, 2018, then you have to click to see which agenda you want to look at. Then, of course, once you click the agenda you want to look at, years ago you could just click to the agenda and decide whether you wanted to see the agenda and the backup. Joe, I'm talking to you too. Now you have to look at the agenda and the entire backup. The system, we're going backwards instead of forwards. I think it's ridiculous. We used to get one click and get the agenda. And Lucy has been wonderful. Sometimes it's just so frustrating. I just say, could you kindly just send me the 3-page agenda? If I want the backup, I'd like to be able to go into it. Jared Shoup, I think, has done a miserable job. I'm terribly sorry. We are going backwards instead of forwards. And I want to make sure that item 7H is pulled from the consent agenda. I do have mud on my face for missing the difference in the size of the tower, but we do have an issue as far as cancer and as far as Volusia not paying their fair share. So please make sure 7H is pulled from the consent agenda. And I thank you for your time. And I think people who have their hats on the counter and use Facebook saying that they are officially representing Flagler County need to show restraint when they bring in their outside interests aside from what they were elected and paid to do. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Yude. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, Sandra Shank, Palm Coast, and I would like to speak about consent item 7P, consideration of state housing initiatives partnership SHIP annual report certifications for fiscal year 2016, 2017, and interim annual report for fiscal years 2017, 2018, and 2018, 2019. I want to first commend Mr. Ralston Riadica, who is the SHIP administrator, for doing a very fine job as a SHIP administrator for Flagler County with the extremely low funds that we actually receive in order to be able to really meet the need of our community. As you are all probably aware, Representative Paul Renner is next in line to be the Speaker of the House for the state of Florida, which is significant. We constantly have the SHIP, the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund, has been swept for several years now. And when we met with Representative Renner earlier this year at Great American Realtor Days, it was very apparent that it was not going to be supported again this year. But I would like for you all to really advocate for Flagler County, because if we receive full funding, it would be $1.3 million versus $350,000. And just for you to know that in 2019, 2020, again, it was $1.3 million that we should have received, a little bit more. We received $350,000. For 2021, again, we can receive $1.3 million. And then the total economic impact to Flagler County by fully funding the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund is over $17 million. That's the economic impact. So every time the Housing Trust Fund is swept, we are losing millions of dollars, and we are not able to help many, many households. And Jason with the Florida Health made a very important, he reported a very important statistic, which was that 30% of their employees reside in Flagler County. So that speaks to the fact of, one, the lack of the economic impact because of the loss of the funding from the Sadowski Housing Trust Fund. People can't afford to live here, so they have to work in St. Johns County in order to afford to live here. Interestingly enough, they still don't make enough in St. Johns County to be able to afford to live there. So it is an extreme burden on our community. And I would like to leave you with this thought. If you go to Publix or Walmart to go do your grocery shopping, and you arrive there and there's a sign on the door and it says closed until further notice, you'll probably drive to the next supermarket. But eventually it will become an inconvenience to you, because Jason used the same term, ecosystem. Everybody is valuable in the ecosystem. If our service workers cannot afford to live here, then we won't have anyone to meet those needs. And we will see signs saying closed until further notice. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Shank. Next speaker, please. Welcome, Commissioner.
Madam Chair, I wanted to make some comments.
You have to introduce
Rick
yourself.
Belhumeur, Flagler Beach. I wanted to make some comments on 7P.
Would you like us to pull that?
Yes.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And,
P, you said, sir?
P.
Yeah.
P's and Paul.
Okay. Any other speakers for this evening?
Good evening. My name is Jules Kwiatkowski.
Welcome,
I
sir.
just returned from Lowe's Shopping Center. As I was pulling into the parking lot, I noticed a couple of signs that caught my attention. These signs says Veterans Parking. Thank you for your services. I thought this was a good idea, and I hope the city and the county will follow through. I would like the county to install these signs at all county facilities, City Hall, library, and so forth. This would be an honor to all veterans. I contacted Representative Renner and Congressman Walsh, and they also told me this was a good idea. I also contacted Publix, Winn-Dixie, Home Depot, and McDonald's, and they said they would forward this on to their main office. Also, I would like all stores to have a yearly discount for veterans, not only on Veterans Day, but every day. As International House of Pancakes and Sunnies does, I hope all the other stores will do the same. And thank you for the veterans. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kowski. Any other speakers this evening? Okay, seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close the community outreach portion of our agenda. A couple things. With respect to Ms. Gentile-Yude's comments, I use all of the websites for the City of Flagler Beach, City of Palm Coast, City of Bunnell, ours. They're pretty much similar in terms of how you get to the agendas, almost identical actually. But she does make a point, and I'm wondering if maybe we could explore the opportunity or the possibility of just putting a hyperlink on the front page of our website for the current meeting's agenda, maybe, so it would make it a one-click. And then if you want
We'll
more
work
detail-
on that.
Just this, just a thought. I thought that was a valid point. And Ms. Shank, I think I just wanted to comment on one thing. The legislative ask that we do every year is to not sweep those Sadowski funds, and we were well aware of the impact of that, and we hear you loud and clear, and we're in common agreement on that. That's actually even part of the legislative ask for the Northeast Regional Planning Council that Commissioner Sullivan is a member of. So, we hear you. So, and our legislators know that. They know that. But as we know, there's lots of politics there. So, and then Mr. Cameron, with respect to veterans parking in public spaces in our parking lots, obviously we can't do anything about private property and that nature. But if that's something that maybe we can consider a look at, maybe you could come back and talk to us about that another time. So. I don't know the laws.
I've got it down to take a look at it.
Okay.
And we'll certainly follow through.
Commissioner?
Yeah, I just want to give you the history on those two signs out there. We started as we were going to do a Purple Heart parking, and after meeting with the veterans groups, we decided that it was much better just to have a veterans parking spot. And so we have two of them out there, but that's how that started. And I think it would be good if we would continue that in other county buildings. And so
We'll take a look at that and get back with you by the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so we'll move on to the consent agenda. Commissioners, any items to pull, starting with you, Commissioner Erickson?
Nothing.
Thank you, sir. Commissioner Hanson?
7J.
Commissioner Sullivan?
Yes, 7C, I agree on 7J. 7L. I was going to do 7P, but I think we're going to do that, right? Again, we're going to do 7P again. That's on the
Yes, sir.
Sadowski. 7V, 7X, and I won't do it.
Commissioner Mullins?
I got 7H. And the rest have already been mentioned.
7H. Okay, we got that. All right, and the chair is covered by everything else that we've got so far. So I'll entertain a motion to approve the
Chairman,
consent.
I move that we approve the consent agenda with the exception of paragraphs 7C, 7H, 7J, 7L, 7P, 7V, and 7X.
We have a motion to approve the
Second.
consent agenda. We have a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. First pulled item is item 7C. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I just wanted to get clarification on Dorian. Of course, the president did not declare a national disaster for Dorian, and therefore, I just kind of, what are we hoping to gain? I read the article. I know we declared it, and then we pulled it back. Is there anything left that we can recoup as far as expenses concerning Dorian?
Well, we certainly haven't written off the possibility that we will get that declaration. Jonathan is working very hard on that. I got some pro bono work from a Washington lobbyist that is also doing some work for us. The congressman's office is addressing it. We've also been in contact with Senator Rubio's office. It is critical that we get a reimbursement for this, particularly the preparation and mobilization, because if coastal counties do what they need to do to protect the population, it costs more than most coastal counties can afford. And consequently, if we start holding back on preparations and staffing and safety measures, we set the citizens up for a potential much worse disaster if we do get a hit. So this is a top priority for us, and we're certainly pursuing every angle to get that declaration to apply to us.
Mr. Cameron, do we have a federal lobbyist?
We do not at present. I had a relationship from a past lobbyist that represented St. Johns County, and he agreed to do this for me pro bono.
Would this not be something we should look into with that, as much as we're dealing with FEMA and national stuff? Because it seems like we don't have that connection. We're missing the connection, especially with grants and things like that.
We are at a little bit of a handicap, and we do millions and millions of dollars worth of business with the Army Corps. We're fighting now for $2.5 million reimbursement on our Medicaid ambulance expenses. There are numerous grants that we can pursue. Generally, a good lobbyist in what D.C. is essential once a county gets to a certain size.
We're really, without one, we're almost going through the phone book. It's equivalent to going through the phone book and calling services versus working relationships and deals. Is that something you recommend us looking into, the staff looking into, or you guys looking into and presenting to us?
Administration intends to bring that to the Board of County Commissioners at some point. We've just got a lot of things on our plate, and as soon as we can get some of those off, we will address that for you. It is a question of priorities.
Gotcha.
Commissioner Hanson, I know you want to.
Yeah, a couple things. One of the things we need is we lost $3 million worth of sand, and so we need to go after that. Regarding Washington lobbyists, we used to have a Washington lobbyist, and at my urging, we fired them. They were ineffective, and quite honestly, as a Washington lobbyist with 16 years in my background, I felt that Commissioner Sullivan and I could be the best advocates for us because we know who to talk to, we know how to get in to talk to them, and when the need arises, I'll get on an airplane and go up there. I did it for 16 years. I haven't lost my edge.
Well, you are a unique resource for our county.
Okay, any other comments, commissioners, or questions regarding item 7C?
I had one, just to follow up on that, just make sure, it turned out that we did have a lobbyist. We had him up there for a while, part-time and all that. And when we made our trips to Washington, we just didn't get support. We essentially set up all the meetings. We even got the taxi cabs to get around, and it was like we were supporting the lobbyists, instead of them supporting us.
Well, the quality of the lobbyist is important. There are a lot of lobbyists that you see them once a year or twice a year, and they entertain you and they shake your hands, but they don't actually get things done. I have been fortunate enough to work with a number of lobbyists that are very, very effective.
Okay, if nothing else, I'm going to open this item up for public comment. Anyone wish to comment on item 7C, which is ratification of our proclamation of state of local emergency of Hurricane Dorian and emergency orders? Okay, seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment, bring it back for a motion.
Motion to approve 7C, ratification and the proclamation of state of local emergency for Hurricane Dorian and emergency orders.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Next pulled item is item 7H. It's an interlocal agreement with Volusia County for co-location of the 1250 South Old Dixie Highway communications tower. So any questions anyone have here? No? Okay.
On 7H.
All right. So we have nothing on 7H. I'm going to open that up to public comment. Anyone that wish to comment on item 7H?
Gentleman, Jane Gentile Youth, I am absolutely shocked. 300 and I missed the public hearing that increased the height from 199 to 320. We borrowed, according to notes, $14 million for 6 towers. Why are we allowing Volusia County 80 feet that we have to look at for a one-time fee of $453,000? Nothing for maintenance, no insurance. What are we, the armpit of the United States here? Why are we borrowing $14 million and paying yearly interest? I gave you all the dates, gentlemen, of all the hearings. March 20th, 2018, April 13th, May 21st, July 16th, Planning Board, August 14th. And thank you, Adam, in the middle of my campaign, I missed the last 2 Planning Board that raised it from 199 to 320, although it doesn't look as frightening as I thought it would be. There's no buffer between the parks. But where do we have the nerve to give another county 80 feet for a one-time flat fee? No lease agreement, no nothing. We have to look at it. I read the notes from the meetings that I missed. People nearby complained. We have a high rate of cancer. And you never got the FAA no-hazard approval. What was sent to me was an antenna registration application. You have never received the no-hazard fee, the no-hazard report from FAA. There was nothing posted at the tower. You need to read the attachment that Anna Mengel sent. Nothing has been posted. How can you approve something that has not been approved by the FAA? We're 4.4 miles from the airport. The registration and the approval of the radio equipment has not been done. But Volusia County tomorrow is going to get an okay, and we don't have an okay from the FAA. I cannot believe that nobody wanted to have this for discussion. You need to table this because I will be going to the FAA and getting as many people as I can. And the fact that you are allowing cancer-causing agents to go out all over and inside a county park. Joe, this is your district through the chair. The commissioner for this district has to do something. You don't have FAA approval, so you cannot tell Volusia County yes tomorrow when you don't have approval of anything other than your antenna registration. It's disgusting.
Any other public comments on this item? Seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comments. Mr. Cameron and Mr. Shoup, any desire to address
Mr. Shoup would be your best
I will say
evidence.
this commission has had numerous robust presentations and discussions about this particular tower, all our towers, and we even had Volusia County come and talk, present to us and talk with us. So, but go ahead, Mr. Shoup.
Jared Shoup, Chief Information Officer, Flagler County, as well as Bill Clausen. He's the Assistant IT Director for Volusia County. So, tower wouldn't have been gone up, wouldn't have been raised if it wasn't FAA approved. The document that was provided actually shows that it is lit, that it has the right to be there, that it has a registration certificate. They would not issue that if we had not gotten the no clearance or the no hazard from both Flagler and I believe it was the Ormond Beach Airport. I believe is the one that was there. Yes. The Ormond Beach Airport. So we've already actually set their shelter there. They did pay for the top 80 feet. You are correct. That cost, that $453,000, is for Volusia to pay for that raising of the tower steel. We entered into an agreement. Both he and I met, as well as all of our counterparts, discussing some of this, and they raised the tower. We were going to pay the maintenance no matter how tall that tower is. But in return, Volusia County has given us what they own, the top 80 feet, is ours. They're paying for it. They also gave us the spot from 260 to 199 for us to be able to put any other cell carriers or anybody that wants a macro site on this tower. So basically a cell carrier or SLURS system, which is a state law enforcement radio system, et cetera. So there's a little bit of an agreement there. We were just happy to be connected with Volusia County. There is no need for a second tower in Plantation Bay from this, which they needed anyways. And at the same exact time, we're happy we can connect our networks together via fiber optic cable, literally 50 feet apart. So that means more than the few $100s that we may, or even a few $1,000s we get from them a year for maintenance. It's more of the interoperability of our public safety partners and being able to do this, and that's why he stands with me as well. And I'll do the same for his board tomorrow.
Do you have any questions?
No, sir.
No.
No questions.
I want to make a statement, though, about some of this. Number one, is Helga in here? I don't see her. She's not here.
Katrina just left.
We started a mission broadband task force, and we were on a conference call with the federal government. As you guys know, I'm on the steering committee for telecom and telecommunications. One of the biggest advantages and edges we have are the towers. That's something that we were going to have to put up to push this broadband initiative throughout the west side of the county. The fact that we have the towers, they will be able to produce a lot of revenue for the private sector to run wireless broadband that'll encompass the west side of the county. So these towers, they may not be making a lot of money, or they may be making some money right now, but there is the future of what these towers are going to be able to do for us is phenomenal, because we're not going to be able to run fiber through the whole county, through the west side. So it'll give us the 5G, the 4G. So the fact that we got them, it's great. It's an edge that we would have had to have gone and done anyway. So we're ahead of it. So I want to make that statement and tell you guys thank you for being very proactive.
Mr. Chairman, just for clarification, interlocal agreements are not arm's length contracts. They are partnerships with adjoining or other interior jurisdictions, and we have dozens of them. The fire services, EMS, a number of other services that we provide and work with other counties, and there's reciprocity. We have things with Volusia where they cover certain things with us. Ormond Beach, they cover certain things for us. So it's not an actual arm's length transaction.
Yes, sir. Commissioner Sullivan?
Yeah, I just can't let this go by without saying that the 800 megahertz system that we've reinstalled, it's modern, it's integrated with the other counties, state police. The towers now, we own them. We have the possibility of additional revenue, which we don't have now. We leased time on the towers that you've seen before. These are all new towers. They're hurricane-proofed. It's one of the best things we've done in the county. It's been planned for years and years. It's coming to fruition, and I thank both of you gentlemen for showing that.
I want to add something too. It's not an option anymore, the 800 megahertz. It is required. And part of having these towers, they were going to require them anyway. So we're ahead of the curve, and we now have the opportunity to rent these out and to private sector, which is what the purpose of it is. So I think it's a great move, being proactive.
Entertain a motion to approve this item.
Second. Make a motion that we approve item 7H.
J.
J?
Oh, H, you're right.
It's H.
Sorry. H.
It's H. 7H.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? None. That motion carries unanimously. Item 7J, Commissioner Hanson, I think you spoke up first.
Yeah, I was just wondering how we picked the Fiorentino group. What was the rationale?
Actually, that was done by putting out advertisement for an RFP. I personally called the Fiorentino group and asked them to apply. That was the only role that I played in it because of my experience of them being tremendously effective at the state level, particularly in preventing line item vetoes in the governor's office. Also helped me with some issues with the University of Florida. I believe they'll be effective in helping me with some of my dealings with DEP and utilities, but it was an independent scoring process that I did not even know the outcome of until it was finished.
Any other questions?
Yeah, I still hadn't answered the question. How did we pick them?
Through a scoring process. They had an RFP, and Chris can tell you, I don't even know who was on the scoring committee, but they had criteria. They went down it and scored. I'm not sure what the criteria was on it. I was very pleased that the Fiorentino group got chosen.
Did we interview them?
We did not. Chris Clora, purchasing manager. We did have a committee made up of 3, I believe it was. Michael, Joyce Bishop, and Jonathan Lord, thank you. To review the proposals when they came in, I believe we received 5. They ranked them. Fiorentino was ranked at the highest. With the RFP process, if they're happy, they don't have to go to presentations per se. That's only with the CCNA related more on qualifications. They didn't see the need to have to or want to interview them any further. They were happy with the scoring that came in and the firm selected, and we moved to bring it to you for approval.
I would.
Hold on, please. Sorry, Commissioner Sullivan Did you push your button, sir?
Yeah, I did.
No.
In reading through what we had as backup, we did have the names of the people who were on the selection committee and their scoring. We didn't have any criteria of what you used for that scoring, at least in the backup package. And I don't have a problem with this. This is a significant change for us as far as the lobbying effort in Tallahassee. And I just hope everything works out.
Just so you know, the scoring is pretty standard across many proposals that are ranked. You're based on, you're reviewing their scope of work, what they are going to provide to us. With RFPs, cost is included as well. Their qualifications of the firm is big, and usually always the qualifications of the personnel or the team that may make up who's going to be performing the work for us. In this case, and usually there's 4 to 5 different criteria. This one I'd have to pull. It's not included in your backup as for how it was scored between each. What you do have in your packet is what each committee member, how they scored them based upon their review of the proposal.
And that was pretty clear cut as where the ones went, but, okay,
Yes.
I didn't miss anything.
Now, there is one thing, you will be getting more from this in the proposal, and Michael can explain that as far as what they will be providing for us, their services-wise, if that's something that makes a difference.
Commissioner Mullins?
Where are these guys based out of? Where are they based out of?
Jacksonville.
I think I've heard of them. They're really good. I've run into them on occasion. They're really good with medical and technology, which is kind of the initiative that we're trying to take here. I met our current lobbyist. Nothing bad to say about him, except I think it's probably time to get a little more horsepower up there because we're becoming a county with much more needs. And I think it's probably time we get a group. I tend to like groups working on things like this because they have different people that can specialize opposed to one person. I know in the medical field we've used a lot of them. I've never understood them, but I certainly wouldn't want to be a lobbyist myself, and I certainly don't think we need to go up there and try to lobby ourselves. I think that's an added thing, but I think we need to let a professional organization do it that's active. And I've heard some really good things if that's the group out of Jacksonville. And Mr. Cameron, are they pretty strong in medical?
They actually represent Flagler Hospital, and they were successful in getting Flagler Hospital I think it was initially now $9 million a year in enhanced Medicaid reimbursement. They're really an aggressive group.
And it's a larger group, correct? It's more than a one-man show.
I think that there's a total of 5 or 6 lobbyists in addition to the principal.
Gotcha.
Any other questions, Commissioners? I'll just chime in and say that our current lobbyist refused or declined to submit a proposal, so we were going to make a change anyway.
Correct.
And his contract was ended anyway, or was running its course. I've done my own due diligence on this firm, and I would support them. I was fine with the ranking in the top 2, but this firm is very well respected. They're an A-list firm, and I think they'll do a good job for us. I look forward to working with them. So, any other questions, Commissioners? If not, I'll open this one up to public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment on this item? Item 7J. All right, seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment and entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move we approve item 7J.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. 7L, I believe, Commissioner Sullivan?
Right. This is just to talk about the library a little again. I'm on the library board. There's been lots of things happening with our library over the last year, as we all know, and our librarian, Ms. Abernathy, has handled a lot of things. Things as simple as in order for us to receive our grants, long-term plans, like another item that's coming up, is a very detailed work in this day and age. And it's another reason we need a strong lobbyist up in Tallahassee also. We've gone through the process a couple of times. So I just wanted to point out that our library system is well run. We've got a lot of things going on with the library system. This is just one of the other grants that we are trying to get. And unless you have a really diligent person at the helm, you're going to miss out on some of these things. So if you'd like to just mention what's going on with this one, I'd be interested to hear.
Good evening, Holly Albanese, Library Director.
Welcome.
This is our state aid application that we do every year. This year, a little bit different because every 3 years we have to provide a new long-range plan. So along with our state aid application is the long-range plan of service for the library over the course of the next 3 years. We receive varied amounts of money. It just depends. It's an operating grant, so they consider this an incentive. It's a reward. So if you fund your library well, they will provide more money. It is a match. It's 3 cents on every dollar.
Oh,
So-
is that how it works? Because I looked at the list of all the counties, and it didn't look like we were leading the band. I tried to compare like-size counties, but I don't think we're doing especially well compared to other counties.
Again, it's based on funding. It's an incentive. It's not a need-based grant. So the more you fund your library, the more the state will provide.
Any other questions, Commissioners? All right.
Isn't there a large portion of Volusia folks that occupy our library?
We do have, obviously, usage by Volusia, by residents of St. John's, as well as Putnam County, through reciprocal borrowing agreements.
Okay, I'll open this item up to public comment. Anyone from the from the public wish to comment on item 7L? Seeing no one approach the podium,
My name is Jan Cullinane, and I am on the Board of Library Trustees and would just like to encourage the county to fully fund and support our library. It's really a marvelous place. Commissioner Sullivan can attest to that, and Holly does an incredible job. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Cullinane. Anyone else from the public wish to comment? Okay.
No, but I'd second that.
Seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment and entertain a motion on this item.
A move to approve item 7L, 2020 state aid to libraries grant agreement certification, and 2020-2023 long-range plan.
Have a motion, we have a second?
Second.
That item seconded. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Item 7P.
I was one of the ones, but
Okay.
that was brought up.
Yes, sir.
So I just have one small question about that, and that is in our $350,000 grant for the current year, if I'm not mistaken, it looks like we've only allocated $50,000 so far. Is according to what I read, is that good, bad, indifferent, or how do you explain the fact that we're coming to the end of the fiscal year and we've only allocated a portion of the 350? It may be a dumb question, but I've just wanted to get a response.
Good evening, Commissioners. Ralston Riodica, Ship Administrator. I think the question is from page 16, is it? The interim year 2 numbers?
Well,
Program
it's
funds
for
expended.
18-19, I thought it was 350 total.
Correct, yes. So the
It said
18-19.
allocated, assigned 50.
I see 30 for the expended amount.
I'll have to go back and, it was in the backup. It's just, of the 350,000 that we got for this current fiscal year, is there any problem if we don't get it allocated or spent by September 30th?
No, absolutely no problem. So let me give you a little bit of background. The reason why is because each allocation, we have 3 years to spend it. And so
That's the answer.
you ask any ship office, you basically don't spend your current allocation until year 2.
Okay.
And so we definitely don't have trouble spending the money.
Reading the stuff, just check it out.
Sure. Well, thank you, sir. I did want to say a couple of highlights, if I may, really quick.
Yes, sir.
About the report. It's an annual report that we're required to submit to Florida Housing Finance Corporation. So just a couple of highlights from this year. For the closeout year 2016-2017, about $187,000 went to households with special needs. And so that's about 28% of our funding. And then 13% of that went to households that are solely relying on Social Security or disability income. And so if you look at it in the larger picture, about 87% of those people are employed. And so that's kind of one of the misperceptions about housing assistance, that people don't work. And by and large, most of the people that we do help are employed. The other thing, too, is we have 31 of those households are seniors out of the 77 that we've assisted. And then life to date, we've received about over $12 million in SHIP funds since 1993, and that's allowed us to help over 1,000 Flagler County households over that time. That's all I wanted to make the point.
Okay. Any questions, commissioners, for Ralston? No? Okay, I'll open this item up to public comment.
Rick Belhumer, Flagler Beach. Ralston kind of stole a little bit of my thunder there, but I've been on the Affordable Housing Committee for 5+ years now. And I must say that Ralston's done an incredible job with minimal resources to help so many people. And one thing I wanted to point out was on page 3, where this report shows $796,000 being spent, but the economic impact is actually $3.8 million. So you're going from $800,000 to $3.8 million. So because a lot of it's down payments for mortgage assistance, and that just rolls into more money that's been. So that just feeds the need to try and get some of that Sadowski money, and Ralston can do some more incredible things than they already has. Thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Belhumer. Anyone else wish to comment on this item? Okay, seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment on item 7P. Bring it back for a motion.
Motion to approve item 7P, consideration of state housing initiatives partnership SHIP, annual report certifications of fiscal year 2016-2017, interim annual report in fiscal years 2017-2018, and 2018-2019.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That motion carries unanimous. That brings us down to item 7V. And I believe, Commissioner Sullivan, you also asked to pull that one as well?
Yeah. Let me just get back to it here. Okay, 7V is an agreement, a 3-year agreement with ThinkX Innovations Incorporated, DBA as Destination Think, for an annual tourism sentiment index, TSI, for a total amount. My only question is that over the last couple of years, we've gone through a number of support, small contracts to companies to help with our overall tourism benefit, to our tourism. Even this morning, I talked to somebody about the future. I get confused about which software program or which company is doing which piece of the action, since there are multiple uses. And just try to break, I read the stuff, but just try to break this particular one out for me as to exactly what is it, TSI, what does that mean?
Sure. Amy Lukasik, Interim Executive Director for Tourism Development. This is a 3-year subscription, and think of it as research. So we have a research project that is starting October 1st that will be able to survey visitors that are in the destinations at events and attractions. We'll also be able to survey them when they stayed here through the hotel database. But what this research is that the other research does not provide is online conversations that are happening that are talking about our destination, our community. And the platforms are social media and third-party platforms like TripAdvisor and Yelp. So there's a report, and then there's a score. And what the score will be is our sentiment score, which can range between negative 100 to 100. So if we score a 0, that's actually in the middle. So that means we have a balance of positive and negative conversations that are happening about our community. So with this, we'll be able to see what areas in our community are people talking most about. So that's the volume. And it'll be able to help us drive our decisions, not only in marketing and advertising, but in destination development and in events. So that it's 3 years we're able to benchmark. So if there's something we want to invest in, or there's a special category like history, arts and culture, culinary, all those things are part of this report. We'll be able to see what people are actually saying about it. It'll help us to see which one of those categories are bringing the score up, which ones are bringing the score down. Maybe there's a topic that received high scores but low volume. That means we need to promote that even better. So it'll help our efforts, and then it'll help those categories, those sectors, to improve as well. And what's interesting is we also get a place sentiment score. And what they do with that score is they aggregate the value of all the conversations outside of even tourism. And it captures the opinions of our community, anything from politics to real estate. So we'll be able to see, in addition to the specific tourism assets, but also as a community where we stand. So we'll be able to share that with everyone. So that benefits. And then we give them 5 competitor destinations, and we're able to see where we rank within our competitors. So even our beach, we'll be able to see where we rank.
Okay, I guess
That
my,
helped.
I thank you for that explanation. We have here, Commissioner Hanson is our tourism guy, and I'd just like to hear from you that you've looked at all these various programs over the last 3 years that we've looked at, and these all fit, and they're not duplicate efforts.
We're always looking for a way to establish a measure of effectiveness. And what we're doing, is it having an effect? And this is a tool that we need in order to measure how well we're doing as far as getting the word out about Flagler Beach and Flagler County.
Yeah, we've never measured what people are saying about us online. So someone could say, oh, my festival, my event is being talked about all over the
So
world.
what we were doing is getting numbers. How many people?
No, we've never even had that since 2012.
Okay. I thought we were getting the numbers of people who are looking at our website.
Oh, okay. I was thinking the number of visitors that come per year.
No, I was talking about.
The website, we can.
How granular down does it get in the data? So if someone posts something on Instagram about the lousy meal that they had in a restaurant,
Yeah.
or how great they liked the service at a particular hotel or
Yes, we'll be able to
facility.
see if, if it's the frontline service, maybe people think, the people here are mean and don't want the visitors, so we'll be able to gauge that as well. And also, at the end of the report, they'll give us what's called the core conversation drivers. So what are the highest topics that people are talking about? And that'll help us remain competitive, and that's what's making the most positive impression. Then they'll give us the potential growth opportunities. Like I said, about maybe something is low in volume being talked about, and it has a high score. So that's a potential for future growth, whatever that may be. And then it'll share with us the underperforming assets as well.
So then by analyzing the data, you could come up with broad categories and say, the restaurant selection is favorable and not favorable, beach access.
Yeah, even
different
restaurants,
broad categories.
seafood.
Or you can also break it down further, go
Yeah,
lower, correct?
yes, because within the categories, one of them is culinary and food service. So it'll even get granular to maybe it's food, but they're talking about they like seeing the views, the ocean view. Maybe it's seafood that specifically in restaurant is getting a lot of talk.
Okay.
The key to success in this one is how we use the data.
Right.
It's definite, and Amy has assured me that they're going to have that, be able to get that out to the community.
We want to make sure every decision we make going forward is research and database. So I'm research hungry. We're having a year-long program that's starting October 1st with the efforts I just described to you. And then this is another layer as well. What are people saying online about us?
Great. Okay.
Amy, I want to...
That's the whole point of research. If it's good, get it out.
The power of the word of mouth is still the most powerful form of advertising. As we know, we take recommendations from our friends. We read what people said about a restaurant or a place to stay online.
Amy, I want to commend you. We've needed this shakeup over in tourism. We've needed this improvement, and I appreciate it, and I think the community does. So I want to commend you and keep working hard.
Thank you.
If there are any other comments from the commissioners? If not, open up to public comment. Item 7Y.
Dr. Lynn Bravo Rosewater. I just would like to say that I hope the hammock specifically is being looked at, because it is the piece of old Florida, the piece that is very beautiful. And so I hear Flagler Beach, but I would like to know that in looking at that the hammock would be included, because that's one of the things we've been saying for a long time. This is very, very special. And so I'd like people to be looking, because all those comments of old Florida, beautiful, all the trees, that's the hammock. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public on this issue? If not, bring back to the board for vote motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve item 7V.
Is that right?
Yes.
Yes, 7B, right.
Second.
We have a motion, a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries 4-1, 4-0. Okay, with that, we'll go on to the next item, and it's
7X.
7X, and I was the one that, before I talk, maybe open it up to any of the other board members who want to talk about 7X. If not, I can make my comment. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, this is on the new. I just want to make sure I'm saying it the right way. Our new purchasing manual.
Correct.
And the only question I have very often when we go through selection of contractors and things like that, one of the questions from both the public and the commission is, are we taking into account local providers, and are we doing it correctly? So my specific question is, and you did give us a lot to read there, both versions, the X'd out version and I couldn't tell, have we done anything to change the way we handle local providers and the percentages we give them and time and things like that, and second chances if they want to decrease their price? So could you just talk a little bit, were there any changes in this purchasing manual in that regard?
Okay, yes, Chris Calora, Purchasing Manager. So that was one of the big things that I thought you guys would be most interested in, was local preference. I will say over the last many years, there aren't many times that we've had to use our local preference. But what I will say is it does come into play. It has been changed. What I did do with this new policy is put it into, the way the old policy was is if you qualified as a local vendor, we would pay the higher price. We would pay that price within that 5% if they were within the 5% of the low bidder's price. A lot of times it doesn't fall within 5%. To have multiple quotes or bids that actually are that close together sometimes is very rare. So that's why I say it isn't often that it happens. But then if it did qualify, Flagler County was paying a higher dollar value. What many agencies are going to across the state, they're either eliminating local preference or they're requiring or asking the local vendor to match the low bid. And then we aren't out any additional money than we would be if the local vendor is able, if they have the opportunity to match it. So let's just say a Volusia County vendor bidded $9,600 on a widget, make it easy, or a piece of equipment. a Flagler County vendor bid $10,000. Flagler County would now pay, or how we used to do it, we would pay the $10,000 if they qualified. Moving forward, we will pay the $9,600 if the Flagler County vendor agrees to match that price.
That's the way I read it.
Yes.
And it sounds to me like you could read that as that we're making it a little harder on our local vendors to compete. I may be wrong on that, and you have to use the best business practices that are currently in this area of the country and all that kind of thing. But okay, I understand.
Right. And there is, the only difference in change, it did break it down in going, I did it in different tiers. So it's not just everybody is 5%. There gives a tier. The higher dollar value, the lower the percentage price.
There was one, if it got to a certain point, it was like 4%.
Yes. I think it even goes down to 3%. And it works also for the RFP process. It's part of the evaluation. It will get put in there. You know, the other thing too is the local vendors need to be vocal. They need to ask. They need to, you know, if they're, the hard part is.
This way, the vendor has to ask for the effort.
Right.
So
It's
I wonder if
included.
all the local vendors are going to be aware that.
We will do our best to educate
even if they're
everybody
within
out
5%, they don't get the deal unless they come in with a form requesting it.
Correct, at the time of their quote. So we will be helping them, and we will be trying to educate as best. There's a lot of things our vendors need to be educated on, and we will be doing our best to make sure that they do. When we do a formal solicitation, those forms are included in the solicitation. It's just going to be the more local, small purchases.
Small purchases.
Yes. Okay. And they have to qualify. And also their local preference will stay on file for the remainder of the fiscal year. So they don't have to apply every time they submit a quote.
They will or will not?
They will not. We will keep that on file for the remainder of the fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay?
I would just like to add that I was very pleased that we now have a woman and minority business enterprise preference.
Yes.
As part of our policy. That's, it's long overdue. And I would also like to add on to Commissioner Sullivan's, I think where you were going is, I think we need to be proactive in informing the business community and all our local business owners about our updated policy and do outreach as best we can, get it on our website. And then also, I would encourage us, maybe we can even build a database of the women and minority-owned businesses in the county and work with the chamber to make sure that we keep that up to date.
That would be ideal.
Because if we have, if we have that database, it's easy to we can do outreach and communicate that way.
Yes.
So appreciate that part of the policy being updated, and thank you for doing that.
Of course.
Any other questions?
Well, just anytime you make a change, you got to say it more than once, and light the fire.
Yeah, and I know it was probably a lot of effort and a lot of hard work, but
Many years coming. It's big.
well,
so it is a pretty big deal.
It is.
And,
In being in purchasing for 13 years, with the county for almost 16, to not see the policy updated in 10 years, to me, and Al can attest to this, it's been a long time coming. It's difficult. It's very time consuming. It's very hard. It's hard to put the information together and also make sure that everything fits. So I'm proud we're going to get the staff educated, and I think it'll do good for all around the county. Thank you.
open this item up for public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment on item 7X? All right, seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment, bring this one back for a motion.
Motion to approve item 7X, approval of Flagler County Purchasing Manual.
Second.
We have a motion to second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Okay, I think that finishes up our consent agenda, and we will move on to general business. And first item is, we've already completed item 8A, so item 8B is appointment of our canvassing board members for the 2020 election cycle. And I'm not sure, Mr. Cameron, if you wanted to say anything about this, or Mr. Hadid. I will point out that from our backup material and our reading, we know, commissioners, that normally it's the chair's job to represent us on the canvassing board, and I cannot do that since I have filed to run for re-election. And Commissioner Sullivan is in the same position. So we need to figure out what to do about that. And
Mr. Chairman, I volunteer for the position for the canvassing board.
okay, so Commissioner Hansen's volunteered to be my substitute on the canvassing board, and I would also add, if Commissioner Erickson, if you could be alternate.
With crossed fingers and my health and stuff in the next few months, I'll make every effort to be that alternate.
Okay. Commissioner Sullivan, where we're at is we've had discussion, and Commissioner Hansen has volunteered to be the representative to the canvassing board, given the fact that I cannot do that, and you can't as well. So any other discussion for us on that? Or someone, any other discussion?
No, it's important, very important job. Charlie's done it. We've had to do it. It's a lot of time, but it's very important to make sure there's no questions about how the vote comes out, how the votes are counted.
Anything?
Last year was just a lot of fun keeping the people that wanted to know what the count were off our backs half the time, and we were counting them.
And I have to say, between Ms. Lenhart and our county judge, she runs a tight ship.
Yes,
and
she does.
we're in good hands with.
But
with
she can't be it this year. She can't be on the canvassing board.
She's up for election.
Right. So there'll be
Okay.
another person there.
All right. Anything else, Mr. Adid, we need to discuss on this item?
No, sir.
Okay. So we'll open this one up for public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment regarding our discussion of our canvassing board? All right. Seeing no one approach the podium, I will bring it back to this board for a motion.
Motion to approve item 8B, appointment of canvassing board members for the 2020 election cycle.
I think we need to specify that it would be Commissioner Hansen,
And it will be, our designee is Commissioner Hansen.
and our alternate is Commissioner Erickson.
Right.
Okay.
Alternate Commissioner.
Second.
Erickson.
All right, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed, that motion carries unanimously. Item 8C is consideration of our fiscal year 2018-19 budget changes for the building department fund. Flush with money, Adam.
Rare situation for us, yes, sir. Adam Engel, Growth Management Director. This has resulted from a passage of a House Bill 447, that requires all the building departments across the state to panic. What we have then, the situation for all of us is that our carry-forward amounts, so most of these building funds, building departments are funded through enterprise funds. Ours is not unique in that. And what has to happen then is that you have to clear your carry-forward amount then to not be any greater than your average of your prior 4 fiscal years of your operating budget. So for us, we had that carry forward amount right at $1.5 million, leaves us with a balance that we need to draw down, $809,000. And so what we've done is we've accumulated that over many years. We've had no fee increases. We're not intending to do that with any of our permit fees. We had that for the rainy day. It's good. When it's good, it's good. And when it's bad, it's bad. We also had some capital expenses that we were holding off on, and so what we've done then is we've advanced that forward into this budget amendment request. We've listed those as in an expenditure plan, for lack of a better term. We have the related transfer paperwork that's along with this agenda item. With that, I'll close and await any questions you have. Once this is drawn down, this will be a one-time drawdown is what we anticipate, that then we'll be able to monitor this and be able to keep it at that average. It'll be a rolling average as those 4 years then move forward. Right now, that $750,000, if it gets lean, it'll be less. If it gets maybe a little bit better for us, remembering that this is funded through its revenues, so it may actually grow, but we'll then effectively pull through those revenues now, pull that carry forward down, and take care of those capital expenses that we were holding off on. So you'll see vehicle replacement, you'll see some technology that we were holding off on. This will hopefully put us into the electronic plan review that we've been waiting on for quite a while. So with that, thank you for your attention.
Commissioner Sullivan and then Commissioner Hanson.
Right. Two questions first. It's a limited number of things you can use this money for.
Correct.
And I looked at the list, and it seems reasonable. The one thing I wasn't sure of, because this has to be in which department? Has to be in the
Building only, building operations.
Okay.
It's a-
The one thing that I think we always are questioning around here is parking space. And I know there have been come forward some ideas without expanding the design, the area here, which is a more longer term plan. We could create some more parking spaces. Did anybody look at that as possible for this use of this money?
We cannot use any of these funds. These are funds that are used for the building permitting inspection
Okay.
program.
That's what
For us in unincorporated Flagler County.
And if any money comes along like this that could be used for that, that might be a good idea.
Had that on our wish list for a while. Yes, sir.
Commissioner Hanson?
Adam, it wasn't clear to me, is this something that over the years we can increase that number so that you can have a little more flexibility? In other words, are we held to that 700 and some thousand, or if this year we can maybe hold back 800,000 so that our rolling average would go up? Is that possible?
No, sir. Yeah, the rolling average will be always, as the legislature has crafted this, it'll always be linked then for time evermore to that average of your last 4 fiscal years operating expenses only. And so that the only way we could then, it will increase if our revenues increase and our expenditures, if everything's good, it will increase then naturally. And so let's say we have a good boom that continues for the next 4 years. That may go as high as maybe $1 million, because that'll be the average of those 4 years of operating. Remembering that the 181 fund acts as an enterprise, revenues drive those expenditures, and we try to keep those very tight. But short answer for you, absent increase in fees, which we don't intend to do, you're not going to see that grow very large very quickly.
So it's tied to the revenue?
It is.
It is tied to the revenue.
Fairly
So
tight
if the
budget.
revenue goes up, then our rolling
Yes,
average
sir.
will go up?
It will.
Okay, great, thanks.
So this one-time expenditure doesn't affect the rolling 4-year average because it's on the other side of the equation, on the revenue side.
It's that part that we've held on to with the carry forward, and so it's going to be that bubble that we have to take care of now, and then from this point forward, we'll be pretty close to that 750 is what we're anticipating, and so we won't see that 1.5 million grow to that level again, because the state with this legislation is going to keep us to keeping that fairly tight.
Right, and again, just a reminder to the public, this is an enterprise fund, so all of the bucket, all the money that comes in from building permit fees and inspection fees goes into this bucket, and they use that money for the expenses for the building department operations.
Sure.
And that's it. The money's segregated, it can't be used anywhere else, just like we use with our airport fund or any of our other enterprise funds.
That's correct.
The only concern that I had is we have some adding to staff as part of this $850,000. And, when you add to staff, that's permanent expense.
Yes, sir.
So that's going to increase your operating budget. And as long as the revenue is going to sustain it, I guess we're fine. But I wouldn't want to see us whipsawing back and forth every other year that, we have a problem because we can't afford the staffing. So
You've clicked just on the part that we were very cautious on with financial services, because that's probably our one item that creates a very significant recurring expense with that budget. So you were, at first we were a little ambitious with that, and we actually pared those down to just the needed positions that we feel are necessary to backfill some of our operations now.
Okay. Any other questions, commissioners? No. I'll open this one up to public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment on this item 8C? All right, seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that we approve the budget changes for the Building Department Fund 181.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Adam. I know you'll be back. Item, excuse me, item 8D is consideration of fiscal year 2018-2019 budget transfer from reserves for the general fund. And I think we have Mr. Brower up. Welcome, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. John Brower, Financial Services. Normally, things like this would be on your consent agenda. We just thought it would be better to bring this to your attention for this year in particular. The last 4 years, the average inmate medical costs were about $270,000 a year. This year, this is actually the second time we're coming back to you for a $100,000 increase from reserve. So we wanted just to bring it to your attention. Inmate medical is highly unpredictable. You have a couple bad or sick folks, costs go up a lot. We just wanted to bring this to your attention. This is the second time we've come to you this fiscal year for 19 out of reserves for a total of $420,000.
Any questions, commissioners?
None.
Oh, Commissioner Hanson, I'm sorry.
Pardon me, I'm just curious why why this didn't come out of the sheriff's budget.
Mr. Chair, I believe the sheriff has their side of inmate medical. My understanding is we, the county, once they are admitted to the jail, the sheriff kind of takes over responsibilities for that. But prior to that, it's our responsibility.
Okay, got it.
Mr. Cameron, is a lot of this, do you know the answer to this? And I'm not sure that finance will, but where is a lot of this medical done? Is it done in Volusia?
Well, the sheriff has a medical service that handles that, but when it requires inpatient or emergency services, goes to a hospital. It usually goes to the closest hospital. But in answer also to Commissioner Hanson's question, Florida statutes actually make the county responsible for these expenses. And it really doesn't make a lot of difference. It comes out of the same pocket, whether it goes through the sheriff's department or we pay it directly. But we wrestled with this up in St. Johns County, and ultimately the county is responsible for paying it.
I didn't get an answer with that. Does it go to Advent or is it going down in Volusia somewhere?
It depends on what the condition is.
Right.
If it's something that Advent handles, it would go to Advent. But if it's something that they don't handle, for instance, a Baker Act or something of that nature, it would go to Volusia.
So that might be a good thing to talk about increasing services to make sure we're doing that inside the county.
Well, yes, if the service is provided inside the county, we do it inside the county.
Sounds like a good conversation for a hospital.
Any other questions or comments on this item, commissioners? I'll open this one up to public comment. Anyone from the public wish to comment on item 8D? Seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment, bring it back for a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move that we approve the budget transfer from reserves for the General Fund 001.
I have a motion. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
None opposed. That motion carries unanimously.
Mr. Chair, before you proceed to item 9, public hearings, we need to go back to 8B. That was the canvassing board. We need the board's concurrence or a different position on the substitute for the supervisor of elections, Ms. Lenhart. She has recommended Ms. Nicole Williams, who previously served.
Yep, I apologize. We missed that.
Quite all right.
We mentioned
So
it.
you just,
Okay, well, we'll open that item back up, correct?
was that done as part of your motion?
Well, it was, we didn't make it part of the motion. I
Yeah.
mentioned it, but I didn't make it part of the motion.
Yes, you can reopen it.
Okay.
You just announced that you're reopening item 8B to address the substitute for the supervisor of elections.
Chair is going to open up item 8B to address the substitution for Supervisor Lenhart
Could you name
on the canvassing board.
Yes, and that is because she is going to be on the ballot. That's why
Yes.
we have to.
But you have her
The
name.
recommendation she has made is Ms. Nicole Williams.
And which is in our backup material.
Right.
Yeah, right. And she has previously served before and has participated in the statewide training.
So I would,
So moved.
make that motion, please, Commissioner?
I make the motion that we include the fact that we need a substitute for the supervisor, Lenhart, and that substitute's name is Nicole Williams.
Second.
Here we have a motion and a second. Do I need public comment on that one, too?
Yes, just
All right.
to give the public the opportunity.
Anyone from the public wish to comment on this motion? Seeing no one approach the podium, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the board for our vote.
Yeah, vote.
All those in favor of the motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. None opposed. That motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Hadid, for clarifying that for us, getting us cleaned up.